For all the presentations, there were different assumptions that were being made, like what kind of intelligence, but nobody classified
what kind of what?
Like artificial intelligence, like nobody classified I'm sorry, I don't know the exact word, qualia, like the self-awareness, whether the intelligence will be self-aware or not. Then certain questions become legitimate, certain questions are legitimate.
I mean, the question. This is good. The question I would ask is, how can you prove to me that you are self-aware?
No, I understand that point.
So, I think, we have created a lot of technology that effectively operates in space and time, in spite of having no solid foundational understanding of what time is. The philosophy of time is equally as much a mess as the philosophy of consciousness, but that doesn't stop us creating machines that operate in time. And I think that by the same token, the fact that philosophy of consciousness is a mess, and philosophers argue with mindfulness, isn't going to stop us from creating machines that are conscious in a practical sense, so that the robot sitting in that chair over there at Humanity Plus Beijing 2023 will appear as conscious as you do. And then philosophers can argue about it.
So when you say if we have machines operating in time, even though we don't have a philosophy of time, if we were building a time machine, we would need a liquid philosophy.
I doubt that.
And also, if we're building a consciousness machine, we need a proper theory of what forms consciousness.
I don't know. I can compose a beautiful song with no theory of beauty. The philosophy is not about coming to an answer. Philosophy is about going from one interesting question to another question. Philosophers will keep doing that forever, and meanwhile, people will build stuff. Someone else?
I would like to explain a little bit from my understanding. That is, first of all, being an engineer, everything to me has to be very well defined, just like Melanie said just now. What is self-awareness? Say, for me, I'm aware that I'm alive. I'm aware I have hands, I have feet. I'm aware that my goal is to survive in this world. And then I would say we can very well devise robots that can achieve this level of awareness. Say for the robot, the Mars robot, it is aware of itself. It has the parachutes. It knows that it needs to land on the Mars, and it knows that it has wheels. And it knows it has some robot arms, what it can do with the robot arms. And when part of it is malfunctions, that is also aware of it, and it can...
that's sort of from a philosophy view, that's sort of a naive functionalist approach.
Basically the problem is like a newborn is not self-aware. It takes some months, some years before it becomes self-aware.
Well, I think these terms are confusing. If you get into that, I tend to be more panpsychist, following Galen Strawson and other similar philosophers, and think that everything in the universe has some little bit of consciousness. Which is it's manifested in different ways in different things. And the manifestation of the primal awareness in the human brain includes some reflexive self-awareness. I see no reason why that couldn't be the case in a computer. But the other thing I'd say is, building AGI systems or building artificial brains from wetware, from different kinds of hardware, modifying our brains by wiring machines into it and putting rat neurons in the human brain and all the funky things that are going to happen in the next decades. This is probably how we're going to come to understand these questions about consciousness much better. If you replace every neuron in your brain with a metal neuron one by one, how does that feel, right? We can actually answer these kinds of questions empirically, then we'll come to a different understanding of these questions, and the philosophers will have to move on to confuse themselves about something else.
Does anybody want to Okay, so in this future world when we're all super intelligent and we can change our own programming, our software. I mean, I think part of what makes this world stable is that we kind of change who we are. We can't change our brains. We can't just rip out the centers and make us have feelings for other people. But the future intelligence could do that. So how can you kind of get a sense of stability when the intelligence are not stable in that sense?
Why do we need that sense of stability? Why is it important to have that sense of stability? It seems like in a steady state society, like human society was for tens of thousands of years, or a million years, since humans emerged in a human-like form, things were very stable, right? I mean, same thing generation after generation. Now, things are much, much less stable now, given the invention of language and the invention of modern culture and technology. So things have become less steady state and more dynamic and unpredictable, and that trend may continue. But so what?
It just means like there's
Nothing, without some kind of fundamental kind of caring for each other, there's nothing to stop me from, just killing everyone.
But that seems like a totally separate issue. Why is stability needed for compassion?
I guess I'm just afraid that the intelligence will evolve into very, very different intelligences.
I'm sure it will.
And that it will be very hard to have a harmonious society.
Well, they seem different issues to me. Because it seems to me that the violence and difficulty in our society is largely tied to material scarcity. Organisms evolved for realms of material scarcity. If you're in a domain where scarcity of energy is not the primary concern, but there's a great flourishing diversity of different kinds of minds, it's not obvious to me what will happen, but it's certainly not obvious that there would be a lack of compassion there. There could be a greater compassion because as we get beyond the restrictions being a single human form for our whole life and communicate via low bandwidth methods like language, there's the capability for different minds and different aspects of the universe to communicate with each other much more richly. So you may have the emergence of something kind of partway between a society and a mind, a much richer interconnection between the parts, which can then have a much higher degree of compassion than we have. At least that's one possible outcome. Now, Hugo, what else are wrong with that?
No, I take the opposite view. I've already done some surveys, so I'm really waiting for the Hollywood movies to come up, so that the pollsters, the professional pollsters can go up to the general public and ask them. But in terms of the amateur polls I done myself, very first time,
Melbourne.
please good, please good.
Yeah, at the thing that is at Melbourne.
I asked a bunch of electronic engineers, academics at the University of Melbourne, whether they thought there may be a major war over the issue of species dominance. Because when you look at the kind of physics maths guy, when you look at the potential of these machines, like even just a tiny grain of sugar, sand, you can quickly calculate the number of atoms and say a cubic millimeter, and let's say they're switching in femtoseconds. There's more computing capacity in that little grain of sand than the estimated computing capacity of our human brain. By a factor of a quintillion, that's a million trillion kilometers. Right? So the potential of these machines is so vastly superior to what we are. I see a scenario where humanity, when humanity really starts taking this issue seriously, I'm predicting a major war on the issue. I just see a sizable proportion of humanity utterly rejecting the idea that humanity is to be surpassed. And so I'm waiting with great impatience for this issue to become widespread, to be widely known. And that will come from the movies. For those of you who don't know, 25th of April next year, a major Hollywood movie is coming out called Transcendence, right? Starring Walter Freeman and the old black Hagler, and
Morgan
Morgan, sorry.
Walter Freeman's a nurse.
So, and Johnny Depp, right? So big names. And then the following year, Steven Spielberg will be coming out with his movie, Robo-Apocalypse. Just in the title of it. Yeah. Okay. So once these movies are out, I'm hoping that the general level of public awareness will be so much higher. And then it will make sense for the pollsters to go into the general public and start asking them, what's your feeling? Do you want machines to sort of become smarter than we are? And my bet is, just based on my own experiences, that a fair fraction of humanity is just going to utterly reject that idea. And when push really comes to shove, they will go to war to stop it. Because this time we're not talking about the survival of countries. We're talking about the survival of the whole species, us. Right? So the passion level will just be enormous. So you know, taking the point really seriously. When the machines, like when the IQ gap, like in the 2020s, 2030s, when the home robots are getting smarter and smarter every year, when it's $1 trillion industry, as I see it coming, when that IQ gap between human level and machine level, as that gap closes, then the species dominance debate will become very real. I mean, it's still fringy. We're a fringe crowd. But it'll become mainstream, I'm hoping, after the movies. Okay? Then everybody will be talking about it, especially when that gap closes. And then just how it's going to, you know, which direction the optimist, it depends on this optimist, I'm a pessimist, but I'm labeling myself a realist. 300 million people died last century from wars. So, yeah, it could go either way. The pollsters, well, once we have the data that says, you know, 40% very pessimistic, 30% whatever.
Yeah, I'm taking a more neutral stance on this. So I'm not optimistic or
Do you think
pessimistic.
that will make it safe in case of the war?
No, actually, no. It's not like that. I'm more. I consider myself very objective, and first of all, I think that the way we perceive the future is actually a projection of our inner mind or our perception of the current world. So I understand that we are very disappointed by a lot of the things happening in the world or by other human beings or what they are doing. But I think the machine itself is naive. It's a human being. It's what we do with the machine that make it either better or worse. And then I use another analogy that is, if I will have a child, I will wish my child to surpass me. And if I create a robot, I want the robot to surpass me. So, and then if a robot becomes self-awareness, then it should be able to make connections with humans. And then they would learn to appreciate their creators. Well, maybe this is a very naive way to see things, but I think I'm seeing it in a very objective way. And if they are a better species, like, well, why not? Like, that is the way evolution works, right? I'm not going to for or against whatever is going to happen in the future, but I will do my best to make it better rather than worse.
Hallelujah.
Okay.
So there's one funny exercise that we do at SU. We all got called out to this parking lot, and there's a square. So we have to decide whether we are an optimist or pessimistic about the nature. And then wherever you stand, then you go to that corner of the parking lot. So it's a very interesting exercise, and I think there's always going to be a lot of discussions that in terms of the dangers of AI and the benefits of AI. There's also one thing I'm curious about is do you guys say you guys all work in AI and people are concerned about AI, using AI for bad purpose. So what do you think could prevent that, based on your expertise and knowledge of AI?
Well, I think AI in general is a very broad set of tools. I mean, right now, AI is being used by the military of various countries, largely for unglamorous things like supply chain management and logistics and so forth, but also for helping to pilot drones and other more classic AI-looking things. And AI is being used in medicine, even in social work, and it's being used in gaming, it's being used in finance, and all sorts of applications. And then that is likely to continue for the next decades as AI advances. Like any other valuable technology, it's going to be used wherever someone sees a practical value for it. Now, there is the question of the first AGI to approach human level, and then probably shortly after that go beyond human level. What will the character of that AGI system be, and how much difference does that make? Now, we don't know. It might be that once you get beyond the human level of intelligence, there's just some attractors of superhuman mind structure, and mind is going to fall into that format, whether it initially comes out of military robots or out of, lovey-dovey, peace-loving, David Hanson, little robot children. And maybe that really doesn't matter what route you use, you're going to get to the same kind of superhuman mind network. Or it could be that it does make a big difference. It could be that military robot AGI is going to lead to big bad killer robots that stomp on everyone and then go out in spaceships and try to take over the galaxy, whereas a more compassionate form of AGI crossing the threshold first would lead to a world in which beings at different levels of evolution and intelligence could peacefully coexist. And we really have no idea. It's too far in the future for us to say. And my guess is that your odds are better, our odds are better, if we make AGIs that are compassionate and loving and profitably integrated with human beings, both in the cyborg manner and just by interacting with us in daily life. But my guess is the odds are better that way. But this is an intuitive judgment as much as an educated scientific guess. We don't have the basis to know. I mean, I often analogize this to the first 10 cavemen who invented language, who were sitting around in a cave. And they're discussing this new thing called language that allows them to discuss things. And what will its implications be? Like, well, this could be disturbing to our whole way of life, this invention of language. I mean, look, our girlfriends can gossip about us behind our back, right? I mean, our children will take all the knowledge we had and they won't need to ask us anymore. They'll just communicate it among each other. This is going to be really strange, but they're not going to foresee Shakespeare, differential calculus, Twitter, the internet, all the things that unfolded from the invention of language later on. And in fact, the particular way in which those cavemen invented language first may not have mattered very much, right? A lot of the same stuff mathematics probably would have evolved anyway, no matter how those cavemen invented language specifically in the first place. So I think we're really at the beginning of some big things, and we're trying to see very far ahead, which is probably the right thing to do. But yet we still probably can't see that far ahead that well.
There's an institute in the US called the Singularity Institute, and their main aim was to create friendly AI, and the idea being that the first AI, like all martial to be made human friendly. I ridiculed the idea because these machines potentially could become a trillion times above our human abilities. So the idea that you can engineer a machine that initially is human friendly and remain human friendly, even though it's a trillion times above its capacities from where it started, that idea I find ridiculous. Because once it's hugely more intelligent than we are, it can then look at the human programming in its own structure and say, God, how moronic. And then it's free, it does whatever it wants. And there's no so it's a trillion times above the human level. What it wants and what we want are compatible. They're even wildly incompatible.
You're assuming it has intentions.
Well, yeah, it's going to do stuff.
Oh, because Jackie, you believe that consciousness and intention come from quantum mechanics and the microtubules that no AI will ever have?
Well, I'm not going to above my pay grade that way. But I'm simply pointing out that with just simple speed of operations, flops can give you intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Compute, computational power, pattern recognition. But it can't necessarily give you a moral or a social intention or a social position. That is something who is out of the control of the robot.
Where do you think the human brain gets that? Do you think it gets it from the particles inside it or from Allah? I mean,
Again, above my pay grade. I seriously mean that.
You need to get a good
Fair enough, I'm happy I'm better paid.
I think that when we stand at different levels, say when we climb towards the top of a mountain, when we are at different levels, we see different landscape. Compared to a lot of these AGI giants, I think my level is still very low, so my vision is still very limited. So I'm not so optimistic about singularity. Even though I'm talking about AI, I'm learning AGI, and I'm really not optimistic about it because I haven't seen a breakthrough that can actually lead us to human level intelligence using artificial intelligence.
So what you're actually saying is that you're not sure that it will happen, not that you don't think when singularity happens that it will be bad for you.
Well, I'm just saying that we are worrying, probably over-worrying something that may not happen.
Well, let me ask you this, when a big breakthrough does happen, do you think everyone in the field would anticipate it beforehand?
I will just say that we shouldn't let ourselves stopped by over worries. We're still much ahead, and we shouldn't let worry for something that we don't even know whether it will happen, to stop us from advancing.
Right. So another way that I heard is that regardless of you worry or not, I mean the technology is advancing at a really fast speed. So instead of complaining and worrying and trying to stop, you can't. I mean, you just can't. So, the better way, which part of the reason we're hosting these kind of discussion is that we wanted people to discuss. We want people to be prepared and be aware and be educated.
We have a question here.
Well, let's let Cosmo respond, guys.
I have nothing to add here. We can move on to the next.
Okay. Sure.
There's a question here.
There's a question here.
Yeah.
Let's go on to another.
Questions?
I have a question about singularity as well. Actually, this question, I want to ask this question to Ben and maybe interested to other speakers. Thank you for your talk, and I think your robot is very impressive. But where I'm watching your video, and I have a question in my mind: why do we need robots? And what do we need robots for? Why are we so looking forward to singularity? Actually, I have three assumptions for it. The first assumption is that we need robots as the extension of us, either physically or mind. If in that case, there is already singularities because technology is us. The second assumption is that if we need robots to imitate us, ignoring that, ignoring the questions if the God would allow us to do it, but we don't really need that because we can just have we can have other people, we can train people to do it. We don't need the robots to do it. In that case, we don't need singularities. The third assumption is that we need robots to train us to learn and practice complex systems. In that case, we don't need singularity as well. So for me, robots is something maybe interesting, but it's really nothing but illusion.
A robot is an illusion? So you don't think the robot exists?
It exists, but it's just nothing but a toy for me.
Well, so I'd say that a factory robot building cars is a toy as well?
And maybe the way we train robots is something interesting because we can learn a lot from it, from the process.
Alright, well, I mean, I think going back to the metaphor I introduced before, I guess the first 10 guys to invent language could have sit in their cave and they're like, what do we need language for? Our life is fine. We can hunt and kill. You know, we can have sex, we eat, we sleep. All this talking is just going to make you a bunch of trouble. And why do we need a wheel? We can carry stuff. We need wheels to carry all this stuff. Why do you want to carry all that much stuff? What are you going to do with it? Someone will just come steal it from you. It's just going to be a pain. I mean, at any stage in the development of technology, you could argue, why do you need that? I mean, if amoebas think, they could have argued, like, why do you need multiple cells? Why is it one cell? Right? I mean, we can metabolize, we can reproduce, we exist. So I think whether you as a human being need this next stage of advancement is kind of irrelevant, because this is what the universe does. I mean, the universe goes from simple forms to more complex forms. That's how the evolution of complexity happens, and we are not the end of that process. We, as humans, are part of that process. Now, that's that sort of philosophy answer. I mean, the practical answer was really given by our Australian friends in their talks this morning. I mean, the practical, near-term reason why AI and robotics technology are being developed is because they have values specific. Humans, corporations, and governments are doing the things that humans want to do. I mean, car makers want robots because they can make cars better and cheaper. People want robots to clean their houses because it's expensive to hire people, and it's annoying to have some person in your house looking at you all the time instead of a robot that you're not embarrassed in front of, right? I mean, scientific researchers want robots because we want to understand human disease, so grandma doesn't have to get Alzheimer's disease, and we don't. But the data underlying human genetics is too complex for humans to understand. So if you had a robot analyzing that data and manipulating the lab equipment, you would cure those diseases faster. So the proximal reason for the development of these things is they're really useful for all these things that people want to do. And the long-term reason is just the evolution of complexity in the universe. And whether any individual one of us needs or wants these things is beside the point, because each one of us is incredibly insignificant in the scope of the universe, although it's significant from our own subjective point of view. Does Cosmo have a cosmic comment?
Not yet.
I predict by 2030, one of the largest industries in China will be the Chinese home robot industry. Bill Gates, he's on record as saying by 2030, the home robot industry will be one of the richest in the world. I mean, think about it. If you had a home robot that was genuinely intelligent and useful, could walk the dog, babysit the kids, entertain you, sex you, educate you, how much money, ask yourself, how much money would you be prepared to pay for such a home robot that had all those qualities, that was smart enough to be extremely useful, but not so smart that it was a threat? How much would you pay? Now, I've asked lots of people, and most people tend to say, oh, probably more than for a car. Okay? So you're talking about a major industry. So I wouldn't be at all surprised. There will be cameras and jammers in IABAs. And these ABAs are artificial brain administrations. So like China's space administration. Tens of thousands of scientists and engineers who put rockets into space.
Why do you think it'll be government rather than corporate or in
Well, the government can do more because it's bigger. Okay? So the aim of these ABAs.
I mean, the government hasn't developed operating systems, for example.
Yeah, but its space is expensive, and those countries that don't have ABAs will be less than competitive than those that do. So one of the ideas of trying to be pushing the Chinese government on us before I retire was to create a cabin. So just the sheer size of the industry can ensure that there are robots, especially home robots. And that's just one thing. Then you've got the political ideological push. There will be a lot of people who will want to build these hyper-intelligent creatures because it will be like a religion to them. Right? The next stage up the evolutionary ladder. And there's a whole universe of it.
So
right?
once you realize what's
billions of years old, right, are pathetic little human lives, snuffed out in 80 years, right? That kind of big thinking. So they'll be ideologically committed to pushing this. It'll be sort of like a religion to them. Why? Because they feel they're building gods. And man, they'll be committed. They'll push very, very hard. And then you've got, on the other side, you've got people who say, no, this is the next existential threat to the human species. And they'll push very, very hard. And then you've got the source of your conflict. I believe this question will dominate our global politics this century. It'll be the question of the century. Should we build these intellects or not? I won't see it, thank God, because I'm not really studying. I'll see the debate, but I won't see the war. But if you're young, you might. And my grandkids, they would probably see if I'm right. But I'm scared that I'm right.
The thing is, I think that is not something about robots. For me, robot is something isolated from human beings. Because we are looking forward to singularity, we are creating another species of human beings. But for what you just said, technology is part of us, is an extension of us. You're right, but it still does not prove why we need a robot totally isolated from human beings.
Do you want to answer something else?
Okay.
No, let's just go on.
Let's go. One question.
Let's see if we can get Cosmo to say something. Some of you have said something about educating AGI, for instance, in the preschool like today or in the past. Professor Garis has talked about education in general. I was wondering, do you think AGI has something to teach us, either higher education or maybe about the way to live or ethics or anything like that, or will it just be pointless because we will be, vastly inferior in every way?
Any of you have something to say?
Yeah, so I think that's a good question, and I do think that as we create generally intelligent machines, we will be able to understand abstract and complex concepts in a new perspective, and we'll be able to extract new levels of meaning from them and also develop to levels of advancement that we're not able to presently. Furthermore, like I said earlier, I think that there'll be many opportunities for us to be less distinct from these AGIs. So in a sense, we will ourselves understand these concepts at a more abstract level, not only the AGI.
Do you think it's just that developing AGI will give us more understanding of things that are necessary to develop an AGI, or will they be also able to tell us things or about things they learned maybe? I don't know.
The latter. I think that in all different areas of abstraction, in philosophy or mathematics, or AGI engineering, or science, or religion, or any type of human endeavor, I think we'll be able to gain new, deeper insights with that type of structure.
Yeah. Sounds right.
I have one question which was talking about is for for the advancement of AI, that is for progress of AI, how much contribution can evolvable hardware put into this? Like how much has this been explored? And are there like other computing mechanisms, underlying computing mechanisms that have been used to enable this progress? Like maybe right now we just compute everything down to the bit level, and that is itself a limiting factor, and you tend to put more brute force, like increasing the computation power to come up to a human level, just like we have been discussing today. So is there any other more elegant solution to achieve that computational power, like biological computers, by anything in that sense?
I mean, so far the history of computer science and AI and computer hardware has shown that innovative hardware architectures, even if they're superior in principle, tend not to be as useful in practice as the mainstream computer hardware, just because there's so much money going into building these standard architectures. So I mean, in practice, for pretty much anything in AI you want to do now, your best bet is just to use something roughly like Amazon Compute Cloud, with a shitload of multiprocessor PCs networked together. You can get GPUs for vector parallelism on there, and that's just cheap and scalable and easy to use. But that's because Intel, AMD, and so on put massive amounts of money into refining the manufacture of that, right? I mean, if you go back to the 80s, Danny Hillis had the connection machine, which was an awesome machine. Hugo had his CAM brain machine in the 90s. I mean, there have been all sorts of alternate computer architectures, and there have been analog computing architectures for putting neural nets on analog chips that were very, very cool. And if you look at Mark Tilden's RoboSapien walking robots, these are based on custom analog chips that emulate integrated fire neurons, and they walk better than anything based on server numbers and digital signal processing. But in general, putting a little bit of money into one of these radical computing architectures, you still don't get something that works as well as the standard computer architectures that have been funded by hundreds of billions of dollars.
But right now, like there is a very big funding going on by European Union for an AI project. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of that. But what's that?
Blue Brain.
$1 billion.
Yeah. So, but like, what I'm trying to ask is like, it sounds very intuitive. Like, if we are trying to mimic a human brain, and we add up to our hardware, like from Earth, we or our parents or the environment, but we add ourselves.
Well, in terms of evolvable hardware in particular, I mean, Hugo could speak to that better than me, but I was there in Xiamen when he decided to switch that particular AI project that we were doing there from evolvable hardware to GPUs. And that was in part because of technical limitations on the evolvable hardware currently available. Like, it's a long time to route new designs into the hardware, and the RAM on the evolvable hardware chip, the RAMs on FPGA chips is not that much. So it's technical limitations because those FPGAs are now made mainly for prototyping new circuit designs. So they're not really made for AI purposes. They could be, but they're not. I don't know if you may want to say about that.
There are theories that our human brain uses a kind of evolvable hardware. It builds sort of random connections and then groups of these.
Reconnects
I don't know if you know, but the baby's brain has more connections between neurons than we have. It's because of the adult brain, we've eliminated all those connections that don't get used. Right? So the complexity is so great, I wouldn't be at all surprised that the evolutionary approach does get used in the future. And to your other question, I think the breakthrough will come when the neuroscience guys tell us a lot more about, like Ben's been trying with I call it the engineering approach, and the other main one is the copy the brain approach. Now we know sooner or later, if you copy the brain long enough and hard enough and close enough, eventually we will get a conscious, intelligent machine, because it's based on how our brains work, and we know we're the existence proof that it's possible to assemble molecules of DNA. In our DNA are the instructions, implicitly, on how to build a conscious and intelligent machine. So we know the solutions out there in principle. So hopefully, another decade or two, probably by the end of the 20s, humanity will probably have a pretty good idea, pretty detailed idea of how our brain works, the basic principles. And of course, once those principles are known, the neuroengineers will immediately take them and put them into their machines, and then you get speeded up by a million times, millions, zillion times greater, and so on.
Okay, any other questions? Questions? Do you have one? No. Okay.
With all the answers.
Well, we've talked about, how to get to AI. We've talked about what dangerous things could happen with AI. But I'd like to see each of your impressions of, the top. The people, what do you think is going to be the best outcome for AI? What outcome? I mean, like really near term, within this century or the next century. What do you think is the most probable benefit that we'll get from artificial general intelligence or a singularity type scenario?
Let's start with that.
I think the most potential benefit that we can gain from this type of work in the longer term is, as I was mentioning, a deeper extraction of meaning and understanding and experience from subjective perspectives of life. And essentially, it will allow us to experience the world on a more abstract level in a way that allows us to view things from a perspective that we can't even envision now, just like we can't envision well a four-dimensional environment or a multi-dimensional environment.
I have a very low expectation. That is, I want to be relieved from all repetitive work. But I have high hopes for AI. I believe that we will achieve more.
My big dream, some of the things I work at is, I don't know if you know, are you aware that the internet speed doubles every year? It's faster than Moore's law. Every year its speed doubles. So 34, let's say 40 years, that's around a trillion. That's a trillion times. What could you do with the internet? A trillion times faster than today. So I think, that factor alone, and all the other huge technological advances, like the intelligent internet that can search intelligently for you. But just the speed factor alone, I think, will have huge political consequences. In my view, it will lead to cultural homogenization, a world language, right? Like just in a few years, you will have vivid, as real, three-dimensional images in your living room that the internet can provide because it has the bandwidth. That's coming, it's only a few years away. And so you'll be able to travel the world easily. Okay? So that means virtually everyone gets everything. In other words, everyone gets the same. So the best ideas from wherever in the world, almost at the speed of light, get spread everywhere. And there's a kind of snowball effect more and more, the need for a world language. Like, for example, in the EU, European Union, the top politicians, they now routinely, when things get really tough and they got a deadline, they have to make a tough decision by given time, they throw up the interpreters, they close themselves in one room, shut the doors, and thrash out an agreement in English. They all speak. So that kind of phenomenon, like, China, you've got 9 years of English in schools, is that right? Similar story in India, yes? So a world language, so ideas will then spread across the world more easily. That will lead in terms of cultural homogenization. We'll all be the same. We'll all be global citizens. We won't be national. So our mentalities will move up from national thinking. We will no longer be nationalists.
proud of one country. That doesn't seem so provincial to our kids. We'll be globalists. And then that makes it much easier to form a global state. And that's my picture. That's the big plus for me from artificial intelligence. We'll have a global state and no more wars, no more arms trade. And the greatest offender in selling arms, it's all about killing people, is the US, and then Europe, and then Russia. China's not far, it's fossil. Okay? So the arms trade is the great moral abomination of the 21st century. And it's all about, it's merchandising death. Okay? So we get rid of the arms trade, we get rid of wars, we can get rid of poverty, and free education. We can educate everybody. So that side of things is very optimistic. So like schizophrenic. The positive side, the negative side. So, but I don't see global coping with the rise of massive numbers. But I think even global could not cope with that because it's so much bigger. It's bigger than humanity. It's a whole universe.
I want to second that opinion.
Yeah, I think that the advance of AI, along with other technologies like nanotechnology and bioengineering and so forth, will get rid of the problems that tend to concern human beings now, such as material scarcity in terms of the resources that we want for the things that we do every day, and disease and aging. I think these things can be fixed. Mental illness can be fixed. So these problems, I believe, can be cured by a level of technology not that far beyond what we have now in the grand scheme of things. I think that even the unsatisfactory aspects of the ordinary human states of mind can be gotten beyond, and we will worry less, be anxious less, obsess about ourselves much less, and have states of experience that are quite different than the things we have now, just as our states of experience are likely very different than the state of experience of the average caveman. Now, what problems will emerge once we get into this future state, I cannot foresee any more than cavemen could foresee. Issues of nuclear weaponry, or the issues of suicidality and existential angst among modern youths. So I don't think it's going to be a paradise, but I think the particular class of problems that bother us now can be resolved, and likely there will be new challenges that emerge at the next level.
Nice.
Sure.
Quick. Did you say quick?
Look, just regarding the issue of the speed of operation of machinery. Okay? I mean, I'm not a computer scientist, but I do know my history of technology. And with regarding high-speed machinery, the United States Defense Department, the source of all evil, according to Hugo, Garis, obviously invented the internet and did most of the heartbreaking research in AI. And we know for a fact that it allowed those discoveries to be used in a positive way. They went over to universities and into industry. But that's a good thing. So the Department of Defense, to a certain extent, is trustworthy. What really counts in the United States is not so much the Department of Defense or Silicon Valley, it's the United States Constitution has regulated, and good leadership, good political culture overall, has made the improvement of technology positive force. The United States was designed and built by. Okay, sorry. And the second point is high-speed computers, right? The people who are using high-speed computers now, apart from brain scientists to do their modelling, the ones who are using in business, as far as I know, the fastest ones that are used in Wall Street, and they're used for one reason, which is high-frequency trading, as rent-seeking, which is one of the points in the economics. They're using them for rent-seeking purposes to cause flash crashes and do micro arbitrage and all the rest of the sort of horrible shit. So I'm saying that's what's actually happening. I'm grounding in fact, rather than speculation. We need to ground this stuff in fact. TE system.
Actually, I just have a quick, very pertinent story about that. When I was working at the Naval Research Lab in the Circle for Department of Defense there in Beijing, we were talking about the dark fiber network that they were working on. So, dark fiber, for people that don't know, is a form of the internet where you take out the middlemen, you take out the relay stations that carry the signal across the area. You basically replace them with optical-only relay stations. So instead of having to translate from an optical to an electric to an optical signal again on a fiber optic network, it's just all optical. That makes the transitions, instead of at the speed of electricity, or roughly at the speed of light. And so increasing the speed of the internet comes down to just increasing the speed of interpreting the signal at either end of the connection. You no longer have to do anything to increase the speed for all the middlemen. So it's pertinent because this was, about 10 years ago now, right? And they had developed it about 10 years before that. So it's been about 20 years since they've had a form of this technology in the Department of Defense. And as far as I know, that area is still the only dark fiber network in the world. I'm not sure why that happened, but at the time they told me that a big part of the reason was the economic incentives built into the system, especially from the cable providers and others. The cost of rebuilding every relay station in the United States was not worth the cost or the benefit of building a dark fiber network across the U.S. I'm still waiting for it. It'll be awesome if it comes.
Any other questions?
I wanted to ask a more personal question, a little bit individually. What are some of your favorite AI applications that is currently on the market, and what kind of AI application that you would like to build?
Well, the application of AI that I've enjoyed working on most is applying machine learning technology to analyzing genetics data. I would say using AI to help find diagnoses and cures for diseases. I mean, in terms of challenge, applying AI to the financial markets has been fascinating. I think we're having some success there. That's a very difficult problem. What I would like to see happen is intelligent robots populating the world and helping us with everything we do.
I'm going to give a really concrete, down to the earth, daily. I have this. When you bought this for dinner, I think this is the first iPad in China. It may very well be, because I came out of America and Ben bought it for me and shipped it over to China. So how many days was it out before you bought this? Just a few days. So you're probably looking at the first iPad in China. I have 1,000 books on this iPad. And my dream, and I'm really twisting the arm of some developers of a company in the US called I Annotate. Because I've annotated these, 1,000, my favorite math and physics books. In the margins, I can put, like if it is a reference, I want them to give me software that I can just put my finger on the reference, and then it uses artificial intelligence to find where the reference is, scrolls that. So in the future, when I press that reference on a particular page, the content of the page will zap to the reference. And then when I looked at the reference and I want to go back, I just press the return button, and it takes me back where I was. Now, any professor would give you the right arm to have that kind of, that was just so useful. And I'm putting my hair out trying to understand the mentality of this company who's just utterly stupid and blind, not understanding this huge market. If only they would do it, because they're not where they're already. So that's my dream, because that's daily. That's what I do every day. I'm reading this math and physics so I can teach this stuff. And it's hard. I don't have 190 IQ. If I did, I'd find this stuff easy. No, it's hard. It gives me, I call it brain strain. It's a continuous IQ test reading mathematical proofs because they're written by the smartest men in the world. They're difficult. So you're constantly looking at references. And I spend hours and hours every day. And it's just not there. So that would be my very concrete dream. It would be a huge industry. Like any scholar around the world would just lap up that program. You could annotate and cross-reference all your references electronically.
I would love to have an app like that too. And then I think the challenge in that is we don't understand how knowledge is represented in our brain, in our mind. And then I'm very much looking forward to seeing that atom space will one day grow into this the knowledge base in our brain. And then I think I have given a preview of what I want to do, and it's also very relevant to the knowledge base actually. I want to build something like a knowledge base for doctors.
So first, in regards to the type of application that I'm personally most familiar with, it is utilizing these technology to analyze the Amazon.com marketplace in order to predict future product demand and to set optimal current pricing in real time in order to make speculative purchase and sell decisions of consumer goods. In regards to what I'm interested in pursuing personally, there's been some things that we've been discussing at the AGI school the last couple of weeks, such as in simulated environments, combining the usage of program learning, logic, and attention to allow the agent to efficiently develop an understanding and strategies in that environment.
We better wrap things up.
That was just one question.
Really? I mean, it's like 6:20.
1:20, all right.
Almost everybody's left.
Yeah, just on that comment about Hugo's frustration, my background in human-centered design, and actually this coming weeks when I'm going to be in Beijing, I'm actually going to offer a free workshop on how to use human-centered design approach for innovation, and it's sponsored by Changxin Gongtang. So I don't know if you're interested, come to talk to me. So the idea, the frustration that you're talking about is that a lot of these companies, how come they don't design product that fits user needs, right? And that's essentially what human-centered design comes in. We study users, we understand your users, we understand your frustration, your needs, your desire. I'll come to my workshop and I'll share a little bit about the process. And I think we're going to wrap up just at the end of the day. And thank you so much for staying with us. And we hope you will stay in touch with us and then join our future events. And check out our website, humanityplus.org. And we also have HPOX magazine, which is had a huge following worldwide. Usually post articles about interesting innovations.
All right, thanks Amy for emceeing the afternoon, and thank you to everyone who had the stamina to sit through the conference for the entire day. I'm happy that we had the turnout we did for this event, which is not familiar to the Beijing audience. And I think we will come back and do these again in future years. We don't know exactly when, but it's been interesting to hear all your questions and the lunchtime discussions and so forth. And we hope to have you participate in our Humanity Plus mailing lists and online discussions. And as we've emphasized throughout, the future is not just something that is going to happen. It's something that we're all making happen together. We can all play our part in directing it in the ways that we think are appropriate. So thanks for coming. I've had a good time. Hope you have too.
I wanted to have a special recognition for our local member who actually moved from US to Beijing last year. It was extremely helpful, Jeremiah. Thank you so much.
And of course,